Alright, this is John Kola with OKRod.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, coming at you from the Ann Wigmore Institute in beautiful Aguada, Puerto Rico, right next to the beach here. I'm enjoying the sun, enjoying this summer weather here in the winter time. And what I have for you guys today is to show you guys the number one living food, and probably the most important living food that the Ann Wigmore and I want you to eat, which is our green foods. We will be making the energy soup today, which is the foundation of the living foods lifestyle. You'll get so much nutrition and you'll have so much energy after eating this non-heated soup. And definitely if you come here like I am staying for a week, you're gonna get to eat it each and every day, basically 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with different accoutrements each and every time. And you know, I love how many sprouts it has within it. So anyways, let's go ahead and meet up with Kaelash, who I did make energy soup with about 10 years ago, link down below for the outdated video. This is the updated all new 2023 video showing you guys how to make energy soup now in a vacuum blender that increases the nutrition, increases the quality, and increases and betters the storability. So now I have the pleasure of introducing you guys to Kaelash Neels, a senior teacher here at Ann Wigmore, who is also on the leadership team, who started working at Ann Wigmore back in 1999, and he's going to show you guys how to make energy soup, the one thing I want you guys to make more of in your life, because as you can see, it is rich in sprouts and microgreens, some of the most nutritious foods on the planet. And we're going to hear more from Kaelash and why energy soup. And this is the 2023 updated video, because I think I made a video with Kaelash like 10 years ago. This is the updated version showing the new blending technology they are using here at Ann Wigmore to preserve more nutrients and allow you to store your energy soup for longer with minimal degradation than a traditional blender. All right, Kaelash, so what are we doing today and what are you making for everybody?
We're going to make energy soup. And energy soup is the most important food in Dr. Ann Wigmore's Living Foods lifestyle. It is served here at the Ann Wigmore Institute for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's available in the fridge 24/7. So anytime, any of the students could go to the fridge and eat energy soup. It's packed with nutrients. It's actually a full, complete food. It has all the nutrients virtually that your body needs for survival. And it has proteins, it has carbohydrates, it has fats, it has phytonutrients, minerals, it has, of course, vitamins, and prebiotics, postbiotics, probiotics, and many other things. It's just, if you were to eat energy soup for the rest of your life, you would probably be much, much healthier than mostly everybody on the planet.
Especially standard Americans are still eating fast food, junk food, and processed food. All right, Kaelash, so without further ado, let's learn how to make it.
Yes, so we're going to make it, and there's a technique as to how to blend it, and we're going to add the hard ingredients first and with some rejuvelac, and then we're going to blend the greens last. But let's first quickly look at the main ingredients that go into the energy soup. So number one, it's kind of like a group of ingredients, which are greens. And the one that Ann Wigmore favored are sunflower microgreens, which we grow here at the Institute. So these are fresh, we just got them from the greenhouse, they're grown here. And here in this bowl they're cut, we have 12 cups here of sunflower microgreens. Buckwheat lettuce or microgreens, also grown here. You see the tray on that side, but in smaller quantities we have to use more sunflower than buckwheat. And then if you don't have these available, or in addition you could use other things like baby spinach or baby kale or baby chard. Any other greens work great in the energy soup. And you can use also mature greens like mature spinach and kale and so forth and so on. You can also use culinary herbs. We have a few here. We have parsley here and some cilantro. So that also is great in the energy soup. Any others like basil can be used and so forth. And you can use sprouts such as alfalfa, clover, sprouts, anything that adds green to the energy soup. So that's the bulk, that's like 80% I like to say, what goes into the energy soup are greens. And then we add number 2, rejuvelac, made from cabbage This is cabbage rejuvelac, which is high in vitamin E, which is an antioxidant. It retards the process of oxidation. It's very high in vitamin C. So that's our liquid in the energy soup. And we are adding lentil sprouts, just a small amount of lentil sprouts. And seaweed, dulse, whole leaf dulse, very high in minerals. And we add a healthy fat. This is flax cream. You could also use avocado or sunflower seed cheese or seed yogurt or pumpkin seed cheese, seed yogurt. And this is ground flax, first soaked, activated flax, and then ground. Chia works great as well. We use chia here a lot at the Ann Wigmore Institute in Puerto Rico.
Wonderful. You forgot about some of these other vegetables, Kaelash.
So these are optional.
Optional.
And they make the food taste a little better and also add some texture. So we have three optional ones. Yellow summer squash, zucchini, and then we have carrots here. You could also use beets. They're a little bit sweeter and they make the soup more like pretty red actually. That's another option for it. And you can use radishes to the energy soup.
Not too many makes it too spicy, right?
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah.
Wonderful. So you have lots of greens here, and I know some people may not be able to find greens where they live or grow a garden like I do. One of the things I want to talk to you about, Kaelash, is like the freshness and the quality of the greens. I mean, I know you guys obviously grow the sunflower greens, the buckwheat, lettuce here, as well as you have a whole garden here that goes into the energy soup on most days. But what if somebody doesn't grow their own greens, Can they buy something like just organic baby spinach at Costco or Sam's Club or the Spring Mix?
You could. I mean, here, the students that come here, they learn how to grow these microgreens in their own home. So it's very, very easy actually to grow these. But if you choose not to, yes, you could use those boxed greens like the baby spinach or baby kale that you find in the supermarket. Is it as good? Well, of course it's not, because it's not as fresh. It may have been picked a few days or even weeks ago, whereas these sunflower and buckwheat microgreens, they are super fresh. These have not even been cut, so we cut things here the same day and use them right away. But you could use lettuce and other greens that you find. Ideally buy them organic at least, or one step better would be to get them at your farmer's market. If you don't grow them yourself, get them at the farmer's market and buy them as fresh as possible.
Yeah, and I always encourage you guys, when you guys go to the farmer's market, some farmer's markets are scams out there in my opinion. So always ask the farmer, did you grow this? When did you pick it? And if he hesitates in giving you an answer, then you might want to go to a different booth because he may not be honest. Cool, so yeah, I love my greens. As you guys know, my gardening channel is called Growing Your Greens, where I teach you guys how to grow your own greens. So Kaelash, on the rejuvelac, right, some people may not be able to find this, so I want people to be able to make this kind of thing. So in the States, they sell sometimes in the refrigerated section at a health food store, they can sell sauerkraut juice, or other fermented juices. I think I've seen like fermented beet juice before, something like that, which is basically when they make the sauerkraut, they just take the liquid and they sell that separately. Could somebody buy that and use that?
Well, it's not really in line with Ann Wigmore's teachings, because those things, well, they have been bottled and often they are pasteurized and often they have salt added to them. And so in this lifestyle we don't add any salt to the food other than the salt that naturally occurs on and is integrated into the seaweed. So a better option would be, you could use water, purified water, which I don't like that much because it waters down the flavors of the energy soup, of all the ingredients. So if you do well with like a juicy vegetable, like I do very well with cucumbers, I prefer to use that as my liquid base. Cut the cucumber very small and put that in a blender. Or celery, if you digest celery well, you could use celery. Some people use other things that are juicy vegetables as a base, which adds flavor and color in some cases, rather than taking flavor away in the case of water.
So my question is, the rejuvelac is so valuable because not only does it add the liquid, but it also has a lot of probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics, and you're going to basically be missing that in this recipe if you're not adding it. So what's an easy way, Kaelash, to make a simple rejuvelac, whether it's a cabbage-based or whether a grain-based?
Actually, that's a good question. Rejuvelac is so easy to make. You chop up cabbage, you put that in the blender, you add water, you put almost as much water as you have cabbage in your blender, just visually, not measuring. Just let's say we have 4 cups of cabbage, so we do maybe 3.5 of water. You blend that up, ideally in your vacuum blender, and then you pour it into a jar or various jars. You let it ferment for 3 days, either under vacuum or not. If you have the vacuum lids, you could let it ferment under vacuum. And then after 3 days, you use a milk bag or some kind of bag to strain it. Like this one is great, that's the one we use here, with a fine mash. And you strain it, and the liquid is your rejuvelac. So it's really quite easy. You only need 2 ingredients, which is the cabbage, and I like the purple one even better than the white. We had only white organic, that's what we used, the white cabbage. So purple cabbage, blended with water, fermented for 3 days on your counter, and then strain, and you've got your rejuvelac. Super simple.
And then of course you can't store that inside your fridge, put it in like in a vacuum sealed jar and then put a vacuum on it, and then how long will that store? If you just make it like once a week, you could have it for the whole week, right?
Not vacuum blended and not vacuum sealed, it will be good for 5 to 7 days. So vacuum blended and vacuum sealed, I'd like to say 3 weeks, maybe even a month, because you preserve so much of the nutrients and there's so much less oxidation.
Now the one thing I would say is if you are making a good rejuvelac and it has a lot of bacterial activity, it will basically be naturally effervescent, and so you will need to re-vacuum it, you know, every week, because you'll lose some of the vacuum because it's literally bubbling out because it is so alive. So that'd be something excellent you guys could do. And could you use the rejuvelac in other recipes, or could somebody just take rejuvelac shots or drink a little bit every day for their health also?
Yes, absolutely. So here we suggest for each student to drink 2 cups of rejuvelac a day, not more, because there could be too much of the friendly bacteria, and too much of anything is not good. So 2 cups a day, and it's also blended, well in this case in the energy soup, it's blended into dressings and can be also used in smoothies.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it looks like to me that most of these other ingredients are pretty readily available. They should be able to buy flax, soak it, and then blend it. I mean, you could just buy lentil sprouts or make your own. They're super simple, super easy. And dulse should be available at health food stores, although I go online, on eBay actually, they buy it in bulk, and it's a lot less expensive than buying a little package at the health food store.
And the other seaweed that Ann Wigmore approved and said is very good for us is kelp.
Oh, kelp, interesting.
But some people don't like kelp. They say it tastes very fishy. I say, well, kelp tastes, or fish tastes kelpy, because it's the fish that eats the kelp and not the kelp, the fish.
That's funny, Kaelash. This guy is funny. All right, Kaelash, so we learned all about the ingredients. Now let's learn about how to make the energy soup. And I know since I've been here last time and made the energy soup video, you haven't upgraded your equipment and now use vacuum blending instead of a traditional blender. Now, what difference has Ann Wigmore Institute seen when they use the vacuum blender instead of a traditional blender to make this recipe?
You know, people that have been here before and are coming now, they said, what did you do? The energy soup tastes so much better. And then also, it tastes fresh so much longer. In my personal experience, in the past, when I made it in the morning, in the evening, it didn't taste good anymore. So I made energy soup twice a day. Now I make energy soup maybe once a day, or maybe even only every other day, because the flavor and the texture is just so much better, and it just lasts so much longer now. Vacuum blending. And it just looks richer, you know, the greens, and it's just something else. You know, once you started vacuum blending, you don't want to go back to regular blending. You know this.
Of course, for my viewers, you know, they may not have heard this before, and now they're hearing it for the first time, that vacuum blending is a much more superior way. And just really quick, I'll explain why. Is because a traditional blender, you put the lid on, you blend, and then you're basically blending in oxygen. You started with this much, and you have this much when you're done. Because now basically you blend a lot of oxygen, which then makes the color look a lot not as bright, which also adds a lot of oxygen into the mixture. So when you drink it, you know, you could get gas and bloating. But more importantly, when you go to save that mixture, because all the oxygen is in there, that oxygen is basically in the mixture, just mixed within it. And then it's basically, the oxygen is oxidizing all the nutrients in there, and then makes it go rancid and bad and taste terrible after, you know, a few hours it's been sitting there. And that's the amazing thing about vacuum blending, that they've, you know, discovered here and the students have discovered here, I've discovered years ago, and I want you guys to be aware about as well. So let's talk about the specific vacuum blender you guys use here at the Ann Wigmore, Kaelash.
So this is the New Wave Moxie vacuum blender. We have a few of those here. And one thing that I like a lot about these, especially for the energy soup, is that the blending jar, the bottom, is so wide, and you still have to cut the greens especially, but things just mix much more quickly, much better in this carafe as opposed to some of the ones that are much more narrow on the bottom. So also this is pretty powerful. We use the Vitamix also here with this top or a different one. However, it just keeps shutting down, shutting
The
off.
Vitamix does.
The Vitamix.
And this one doesn't.
And this one doesn't.
Wow.
And also they say in the kitchen, and it's my experience as well, that this one cuts things better. It breaks things down better.
Better than a Vitamix.
Than the Vitamix.
Wow. Impressive. Now, have you had any challenges with the Moxie?
Basically just one challenge, which is this piece here, which keeps the one-way valve clean, and you kind of have to tighten it, or should, before every use, because it can come loose, and then when you're blending it could fall into the blades, and it can bend the blades and break them. It can blend, it could break and blend this part. As you see, this one is broken already, and which we're not going to use, and it has even broken the motor base. So there's different things you can do to avoid that. One is to tighten it every time before you blend, so before every use, or the other is you could just leave it off. And what I don't have it on mine at home, I just keep it off and I make sure it doesn't get dirty. But you can also replace this valve, of course, which basically this is keeping clean. So not using it is fine. Other than that, I use this at home. I love this blender. The kitchen here loves using it. I can only recommend it.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I did hear from the manufacturer they will be discontinuing them soon. As soon as they're sold out of the current inventory, they will not be bringing them back. Unfortunately, that company is only going to bring back the non-vacuum version of that blender. So if you do want an equivalent or even better upgrade, in my opinion, it's the DynaPro by Trivest. Costs more, but that has a 15-year warranty, which is actually twice the Vitamix, because Vitamix only has 7, and the Moxie does have a 5-year warranty. I'll put a link down below to my video on the DynaPro 2250, which is the model that has a similar style carafe with a fat bottom that will be perfect for blending energy soup.
And that's the one we'll eventually get here as well. It'd be nice to have one of those here.
Great, so let's learn how to load up the blender, and then make the energy soup.
So we start with the tougher, rougher, thicker ingredients, those that need more blending. The lentil sprouts here, very high in vitamin C and protein and iron. And we're adding the yellow summer squash and the carrots and zucchini. And so we have about a cup and a half of these optional vegetables, which really help with texture and flavor of the soup. And also the rougher greens like parsley, got some cilantro here, some purslane actually also. Purslane is very, very good for you. That was one of Ann Wigmore's favorites because it's so high in omega-3s, anti-inflammatory and so forth. So we'll put all of that in here, and then we'll add the liquid. The liquid is the rejuvelac, 1 cup of rejuvelac. And then we'll blend that, and then we'll add the greens. One thing too I like about this, as opposed to some other vacuum blenders, it's very easy to put the lid on because it has this, what do you call this, John, this piece here?
It's a valve. It's a control valve to let the pressure off, to lock the pressure in or let the pressure out. So you can pull the lid off very easily without struggling, because most vacuum blenders, it is a bit difficult to pull off the lid because it has an airlock inside the blender.
So now it's locked, and the pump is built into the back of the machine, comes up here to the back. It's on vacuum only, and start pumping. Here we go.
So yeah, we're listening to the vacuum pump inside the machine basically suck out the extra oxygen out of the head space as well as some out of the liquid. If you look closely, you might see some air bubbles come up. Now, you know, there's pros and cons to every vacuum blender. I prefer vacuum blenders generally to have a separate pump because the challenge with this is that if you have too much stuff in here and somehow it does go into the top, which shouldn't happen if the machine's working properly, you could basically ruin the vacuum pump inside the blender, basically making your blender, you know, useless as a vacuum blender, which has actually happened to me before.
It takes a while because it's pretty much empty. If this machine, if the carafe was fuller, it would take less time, less oxygen.
And of course, there are newer vacuum blenders on the market now that can pump significantly faster than older ones, because newer vacuum blenders may have 2 pumps or even 3 pumps in the vacuum blender to do, you know, triple or double the work, you know, as fast.
Yeah. The price is pretty good of this machine. You can get it for
excellent.
just a little bit over $200.
At present time when this video is being filmed, at jcpenney.com, non-sponsored.
So now we'll blend this. That's enough because we're going to keep blending it. We'll keep adding things just to have a semi-liquid base here.
Yeah, so I would call this a sequential blending because you have to do it multiple times. If you try to just put everything in once and blend it, you're not going to be able to blend it. You know how they used to make energy soup here is they maybe added everything and then used a tamper to tamp it in. But the challenge with vacuum blending is that you can't use a tamper. You must put everything a little bit at a time because once you open the lid, it lets all the air in and then you're going to have the oxidative damage. So that's what they don't want to do here at Ann Wigmore. These foods are so full of nutrients, you know, why not be able to eat all of them? You know, some of the studies show you'll have up to 3 times of more certain nutrients such as polyphenols in blueberries, for example, when vacuum blending versus traditional blending. So simply upgrade your blender and instantly all your food got more nutritious because you are keeping more nutrition in it.
So round 1, the sunflowers, and they have a lot of water. So this will also help with everything else we'll put on top. And of course we have to take the oxygen out again. And meanwhile, you could walk away and do something else, like wash the containers, start washing dishes, and once this stops, I like to do it manually, using the dial here, going to the right. See, it took a lot less time. Or there's also these pre-programmed cycles, and some of them start with the vacuum suction, and then you could basically just turn it on, walk away, and does the vacuuming and then the blending. I prefer to do it manually.
Yeah, let's talk about over blending really quick, Kaelash, whether you're using a vacuum blender or even more importantly, whether you're using a traditional blender and what Ann Wigmore said about that.
Yeah, over blending is not good. Well, for nutrients, you lose a lot of nutrition, one, and also the flavor changes. If you over blend, especially the greens, they don't taste very good. They become bitter. So it's not good. And these machines, they're very powerful, 2 horsepower, 2.2 horsepower, and they can get very hot. I mean, you can make soups in these. You could boil water in this machine. And we are looking for nutrients, and enzymes, and a lot of those things are destroyed when you heat up the food. I don't want to over blend them. I just want to blend them enough so they start going down and release the water. This is a structured water. These microgreens, these vegetables, they contain structured water, which is very good for us. And that structured water is released into the food. And the energy soup in general, like the term soup, is liquidy. So it's really rich in those structured waters, which makes the soup also easy to digest because it's blended. So anybody with digestive issues, this is a fantastic food to experiment with and see if you start feeling better when you eat more energy soup. And everything that we put in the soup is a whole food. You know, there's nothing fractured. We don't put any oil in the soup or salt or anything from bottles. These are all whole foods, very nutritious on their own in themselves. And everything is in itself rather easy to digest and not abrasive to the digestive system.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I want to explain Kaelash as well. He's doing that, his blending technique, right? He's the blending master here over here. And how he does it, if you look carefully, you know, he starts off at a slow rate, slowly speeds it up, and then kind of goes a little bit down and goes a little bit up just to get it blended enough. You don't want to run the blender blades too fast unless needed. And once again, blending for the minimum amount of time as possible just to get the desired consistency. now that he's putting in the buckwheat, he's actually not just layering it on top, but he's pushing it into the mixture so it definitely gets sucked in more effectively than just layering it on top. Another pro tip.
And we say we don't use the temper with this blender. I sometimes do, just to push everything down before I turn the machine on, before I take out the air. I'm going to use my hand now, but the temper comes in handy for just this, before blending, but don't use it while you're blending.
So you just put in the buckwheat, microgreens, and the spinach, so this is just more greens being added in.
And we have to take the oxygen out again. So again, you could walk away and do something else while the oxygen is being sucked out of the machine. And I kind of like to say when I encourage people to vacuum blend, is when you add water to the food that you're blending, you water it down, you dilute the flavor, and if you're adding oxygen, which you do if you don't vacuum blend your food, then you add, well, air, and food with air doesn't taste as good as food without air blended into it.
Excellent points, Kaelash. So you're airing up your food when you non-vacuum blend.
And
instead of watering it down, airing up.
And it has,
air goes up?
That's right.
Yes.
And you have like all this foam, right? It increases in size, and you don't really want that because you added air, oxygen to the food.
Yeah, soon enough, I just bought an dissolved oxygen detector meter. So I'm gonna test dissolved oxygen in traditional blending versus vacuum blending, and that's gonna be fun to see the difference.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yes.
So now we have more greens in here. And now depending on how you like your soup, I like to have maybe a little bit chunks, pieces in there. Not necessarily chunks, but I like to chew on it just a little bit. You could blend it very smooth into like a drink and drink it, but I like to keep it, just a little bit chewy. And at the end we'll add the seaweed, the dulse. And I could have added that before, of course, but then the flavor kind of disappears into the soup. And this way I like to just minimally blend the seaweed to keep it a little bit chewy and the flavor, keep the flavor. This is a lot, we'll just do a little bit of that, like this is enough really for this amount of energy soup, and you could always add more later on top and then mix it into the soup.
Are you going to add this too, or this last?
We're going to put that on top of our soup.
Okay.
Because that's been blended already, and I'm always concerned, not to overblend things. What you could have done, we have the flax there. What we could have done
is put the soaked flax into that and then blend it up.
At the very beginning.
At the beginning.
That's right. That would have worked. Or the chia. So that'll be our final blend now. So, mentioned earlier, we can use avocado. Avocado tastes quite good in the soup to make it creamy. Chia, flax cream, or added chia, soaked, activated seeds, just soaking the flax or the chia overnight. And then at the beginning when we blended the lentils, you could blend that with the lentils to create like a creamy base before you add the greens. Also the fermented things like seed cheese and seed yogurt can be added to the energy soup. But maybe on top, because they've been blended already, I would rather put that on top of the soup and then mix it in with your spoon. Energy soup, because it's high in omega-3s and many other components, it's anti-inflammatory, which means if there's excess inflammation, you might be in pain, and as the inflammation goes down, we see this here all the time. People that are in pain that come here, be it joint pain, back pain, and they say, wow, I've been eating this food for a day or two or three, and now the pain is going down, has gone down. And at the end of the program, the 2-week program, people often say, this food has helped me tremendously to move out of pain.
Wow, amazing what food can do if you start eating it. and do it consistently.
That's all. Just blended the seaweed minimally, so it's a little bit chewy still. You could blend it at the beginning at any point. That's how I like to do it, how I find it tastes the best. And that's it. Of course, you could make more. You know, we have like 3.5 cups here of energy soup in this blender, depending on how much you eat. If you make it for one day, for one meal, for the whole day, for 3 meals, or for even 2 days, you will decide how much and for how many people. All that will depend on how much soup you make each time. And you should also vacuum seal it. If you don't eat it right away, vacuum seal it, and always eat the soup at room temperature. So if you vacuum seal it, and then let's say you have this for dinner, take it out of your fridge, maybe 15 minutes, 20, or even half an hour before you have it, so you eat it, or pour it in another container, and then vacuum seal it again, so because the glass will maintain the food cold for a while. So vacuum sealing is also very important, not just vacuum blending, but vacuum sealing.
So Kaelash, what is a serving size like? Would you just drink the whole thing or eat the whole thing as a soup, the 3.5 cups, or would you serve yourself, 2 cups, or how much does somebody eat of this stuff?
So it depends on your needs. If you're an athlete and you exercise a lot, you might want to do 2 cups per meal, per serving. If you are eating small quantities and perhaps you're going through detox like a lot of people here, they don't feel like eating a lot, but we suggest do at least half a cup at every meal to help with the cleansing process and also to rebuild, because that's one of the beauties of the energy soup. It cleanses you and rebuilds you at the same time at the cellular level and helps purify the blood, and it's very alkaline forming, the energy soup.
Wonderful. So do you just eat it plain, or do you add anything to it?
You can add things to it, like here we add sauerkraut or veggie kraut to it.
Yeah, this is the example right here. I literally just got this for lunch. You can see there's the energy soup on the bottom. On the top we got some sauerkraut, some guacamole,
Yeah.
and then some dulse.
Yeah.
They use the ground up dulse, and then just sprinkle it on top.
And you could add other things on top, different types of sprouts like fenugreek, alfalfa, clover. You could also add different culinary herbs like chopped basil, as I mentioned earlier, or anything that adds flavor that's healthy could be added on top or mixed into the soup. And there's one ingredient that Ann Wigmore used to use in the past, but she moved more and more away from the fruit. So you could also use fruit in the energy soup based on her experimentation and studies. There's 2 fruits that combine well with this mix of ingredients. And the 2 fruits are papayas, which we use here in Puerto Rico. It's tropical. We get very good organic papayas. And if you're more in the north, or way south, America, then apples are also great. You could blend them into the soup or chop them up or blend them separately and then add them to the soup. So apples and papaya, they combine very well with all the other ingredients that go into the energy soup.
All right, Kaelash, so everybody learned today how to make energy soup, how much of it to eat, and if somebody wants even more hands-on learning from you and the Institute, how can they do that online, or even better yet, come to the Ann Wigmore Institute here in Puerto Rico where I am. I'm staying here on site to be able to eat all this food without even having to make it, and more importantly, go to all the classes to see how you guys can start learning to grow your own sprouts and microgreens, how to make the energy soup. Probably you're going to learn from Kaelash, take his morning yoga classes. It's amazing here.
So yes, you can check out our website, www.annwigmore.org, or call our office at 787-868-6307. And through the website, you can learn more about our online program, where you can learn how to grow sunflower microgreens, buckwheat lettuce, make energy soup, grow sprouts, and make a lot of really delicious recipes that are part of the Living Foods lifestyle, as well as learn about cleansing techniques, how to cleanse your body, and food and nutrition in general. That's also, you can find more information about our online program on our website.
and that is annwigmore.org. We'll put the link right down below this video. That's it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed this episode learning how to make energy soup the updated way, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and more importantly, share this with other people that are into the Ann Wigmore living foods lifestyle, or even other people into raw foods, because I believe more raw foodists need to eat more living foods, especially some of the deep green foods that seem to be neglected these days in some different raw food camps. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you know some of my new and upcoming episodes I'm coming out about every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. I made a bunch of videos here at the Ann Wigmore Institute this trip. And make sure you click the little bell to get notified as my new videos come out. And finally, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are full of knowledge. I'll put some links down below to videos I've made with Kaelash in the past, including the original energy soup video, which is now outdated because now we have the updated version. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables, sprouts, microgreens, and energy soup. They're always the best.